If your dog is a little bit wishy-washy in terms of like they're not totally focused on the game because there's too much going on around them, so we saw that from him then, Chris, right? We're going to take our leash on our prong or our slip, and the dog is saying to us the environment is too valuable to play with you right now. Whether the dog is a little bit unnerved, whether the dog's a little bit excited, whether the dog just like is preferring to sniff shit instead of play with you. We want to take the working lead and we want to start like devaluing the environment by taking the working lead and just kind of moving away from the dog and trying to catch the dog out like that. Right? Now she's a sensitive dog. Good girl. Good girl. She's a sensitive dog. Haha, clever clogs. So I'm just like baby pops. The intensity of that like tug is going to vary depending on what type of dog you're working with. But once I establish this and my dog starts, she needs a toilet. Once I establish this and my dog starts kind of focusing on the center of that kind of an imaginary bubble that I've installed, what I've done then is said to my dog like, hey, anything outside of this bubble is off the menu. So just like pick the next best thing. And sometimes for a dog, rolling in the poo over there is more valuable from the toy. So when we give like a straight kind of swap, like, don't you want this toy instead of that poo? The dog's like, no, I want the poo. So we take the working lead and I tell the dog, you've got to pick the best thing inside this bubble because you're not allowed outside the bubble. And then that can be a way we can start cultivating a bit of a game. So I'll do that with her a little bit in a second. And I'm not going to start the game until she realizes that there's no value outside my bubble. That value might be kicking off at Sam. That value might be sniffing. That value, whatever it may be. And people may say, okay, well, that seems pretty harsh, like using corrections in play. Well, when we've got working dogs too, sometimes that element of difficulty of like trying to stay in the game is what the dog needs to enjoy the game because of, good lass, because if it's too easy and it's like too easily accessible and there's no like rules, there's no consequence, there's no forfeits in the game, then what might end up happening is the dog gets complacent. And these dogs don't thrive off complacency, they thrive off challenge. So like I've got to make it a little bit difficult for Athena or any dog I'm working with, and that level of difficulty should correlate with the dog. So I'll shut up a second and I'm going to try and like, haha, good girl, haha, good girl. Try and like get her to leave my bubble. And once I can't, yes. Oh, good lass. Haha, clever clogs, clever clogs. Now when she has the toy, I don't want to be offering much pressure because of like, she hasn't got great possession and desire for the toy yet. You know, so if our dog doesn't care too much about the toy, oh, good girl. If our dog doesn't want the toy that much, when they have the toy, we don't want to offer a lot of like obedience and pressure. And now it's coming. And I'm going to reward her efforts to beat me. So if she like re-grips, I'm going to say, hey, there, you can have it. But if she like fannies it out of her mouth, I'm going to punish her by trying to steal it off her. Because of the first thing I want before instilling obedience is her drive to possess the toy to go higher, because of that's my value metric. And once that metric is as high as possible, then I can get loads of I can get loads of great behaviors tied with it. And now we can see the dog like starting to think like she's having a bit of fun and she's being a bit silly. Where's she got? And you're probably not getting that off her. Genetics are crazy. Like, she bites with her back teeth, like with her molars, which is what you want out of a protection dog, not to bite with their front teeth, but to bury that item deep into the molars, and she does that. And this is like the second time I've played with her. So she forfeits the game by not keeping a good grip. Again, I've not even asked for an out yet. Right? So if your dog's not asked about the toy, stop asking for loads of obedience. My job is to build contest. Look at that. Good lass. Good lass. All right? If I'd first brought her out and with everything going on around us, just said, hey, do you want this toy? She would have been like, no, because there's more valuable things in the environment. But what I did was say, hey, we're not doing this over here. What else do you want to do? Then I presented the toy. She was like, yeah, okay. And then I can say, hey, look, like, we can actually have fun doing this. But if I was just like, hey, look, do you want to come away from the fox poo and take this instead? Then likely the dog's going to be like, no, I'm sweet with the fox poo. So it's like going to a restaurant, right? And I'll always have the steak. But if they don't have the steak, I'll have the fish and chips, right? And if they serve me a really good fish and chips, then I might have fish and chips at that place next time. But if the steak is on the menu, I would never know the fish and chips was good because I just ordered the steak, right? And that's what we're essentially saying with our dog sometimes by offering that consequence to stay in. Something else I can do now she wants it is use my gas pedal. There. Pull. Good girl. Good girl. All of these little bits to create frustration, teasing the dog, like short, sharp bursts, getting the dog to pull to it are all things we want to avoid when we've got a pet dog pulling towards other dogs and things. That's got to be nice and clean and black and white. But when we want to build drive for something and desire, that's where the frustration needs to come in. That's where that, ooh, maybe element needs to come in to spike that dopamine. All right? So go ahead and play with your dogs, but you can't ask too much of your dog if you've not got desire. And creating desire might start with that first point of, hey, nothing exciting is going on. All right? Cool. All right, go have a little play with that. Sit. Good lass. You clever? Yes. Yes. Oh, clever clogs. Clever girl. What she got? Oh, nice. Good girl. So I can punish Athena here for getting too busy in her mind worrying about what's going on by snatching the toy and saying like, hey, come on, if you don't concentrate on the game that we love together, you're gonna get caught out. I'm going to, I'm gonna win the game. And that game has been made important to her and she wants to win the game too. You prefer that one, don't you? So if she gets like, laxy-daisy by worrying about the world around her, then I can literally like punish her by snatching the toy. Oh, good girl. Very nice. By snatching the toy, punishing the weak grip, punishing the uncertainty of what's going on around her, yeah? And say like, hey, look, we're busy, we're doing something. Good lass. Clever clogs. It's super important that play is not immune to consequence. Like, that's not a preference, it's a requirement. You watch two dogs play to each other, it's physical, super physical. So if our game isn't physical, if our game doesn't have rules and forfeits and boundaries, just like when two dogs play, it won't replace those feelings that dog has when they're going through their reactivity, when they're lunging at other dogs, when they're barking at other dogs, and so on and so forth, or people in Athena's case. Hey, drop. Good lass. Yes. Ah. Cool. Bring it in a sec. Drop. Yes. Oh, good lass. Now we're going to look at the drop real quick, or the OUT. Everything we do to create possession, we do the opposite to get the dog to relinquish the toy. So fighting like this will create possession, right? Killing the toy like this will reduce possession, all right? A constantly tight lead and the dog pulling into the toy, drop, will create possession, yes. A tapped and relaxed lead will reduce it. So when I'm asking for the drop or the OUT, I'm asking for temporary possession from the dog. Here's how it needs to look. Drop. My arm must be relaxed. What I can't be doing, yes, is saying leave, 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 and then fighting the dog. Because I'm teaching the dog right now that leave means fight. I relax this arm, no fight whatsoever. I might have a finger on the toy, or if I can't trust my own reflex to want to pull the toy from the dog, I let go entirely. I give the command, drop. I use my working lead at a very speedy cadence. And if I'm just teaching this, I teach my dog, drop. The quicker you leave it, yes, the quicker you're gonna get it back. Drop, yes. Drop, yes. And we can have a very nice out. This is my second play session with her. Drop, yes. And the toy stays there. If you notice, I'm not saying drop and then pulling the toy away like this. Drop. It stays in front of the dog. And if you notice, yes, then she's hearing that marker and she's coming back to life, which is really nice. Drop. Yes. Good. And I'm just about done with her now. Drop. All done. I finish while the dog still wants to play. But we must understand both sides of the coin, how to build possession and how to temporarily suppress it. If I've got a dog that doesn't really want the toy, the latter, in terms of the outs and the obedience, the sits and all the rest of it, and the pops, and ultimately our red lead, should be at a minimum. There should be a lot of contest, a lot of dragging, a lot of drive building. Most of my training with dogs is this nowadays, because of nothing truly replicates the feelings of a dog reacting, of a dog throwing themselves at people, being defensive, being powerful, showing prowess, like a competitive play session. But it's not about ball back and forth. It's about, there's rules, there's boundaries, and there's a lot of energy in there as well. Because if we don't tap into that side of the dog, we will forever be managing the dog with corrections, because of we're suppressing, but we're not giving an opportunity for expression elsewhere. And what we probably find is correction, 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 correction. Whereas we should say, hey, fucking don't do that. Don't ever do that. But you can do this, look. And it's pretty fun. That makes sense to everyone? I'm gonna go put her up, have a little go at that. I'll watch for 30 seconds, then we're gonna move on to something else, okay? Cool, good girl. Good girl. You're clever, Clogs. You're a clever girl, aren't you? Good lass.